As an adult, when have you found it necessary to lie to your parents for the sake of your relationship? My mother is a bit of a helicopter mom. Well-meaning, but not above lying to me in an attempt to save me from getting my feelings hurt. She initially opened my acceptance letter to college, so she could get rid of it if it was a rejection. She then tried to claim they must have opened it at the border, but I called her out on it. The worst was when she called my college program coordinator to accuse them of setting me up for failure, then tried to hide it. It was a bit of a shock when I went for a meeting with the coordinator and it started with "your mom called." As a result, I lie by omission to my parents whenever there is something serious going on. I handle the problem, then I tell them what happened. I can't really go to them for advice anymore because I just don't trust my mother. How much credit card debt I acquired when I was laid off from my job right after I bought my house. 2.5 years of living off basically credit cards was rough. Finally back to a point where that isn't a requirement and paying it off quickly. My mother would be devastated. I bought a 23andMe kit, told my dad about it and submitted my kit. Got the results back and found out I have a half-sister I never knew about that is apparently my dad's daughter. Dad asked if the result turned up anything surprising. Nope. My mom is a chronic worrier. I hate lying to her, but when I am traveling she gets super anxious and wants to know where I am and where I'm staying all the time. I usually lie to her and tell her I'm staying in nicer places than I usually am, or in general I don't tell her when I am traveling. Also try not to let them know about my financial woes and crap like that. Nothing really to do with our relationship. It's just so they don't worry. My mother literally worries about everything, to the point where anytime I wanted to go anywhere she'd be like, "Oh why today, why are you doing this to me?" I like baseball sometimes, but my dad could go to a game every single day and I'm just not into it that much. He calls me up once every 2 weeks to go to a game and I always say yes. I've cut class, broken dates, called out of work, and feign an interest in something that I'm not extremely excited about just so I can spend 3 hours sitting with my dad. We don't have anything in common outside of sports and most things turn to arguments. But I'll always lie to him and pretend to be excited about a game so we can have just one thing that's ours. That's actually really sweet. He wants to spend time with you. I have season tickets to baseball and hockey and not once in 10 years has my father gone to a game with me. I'm pretty open with my parents, but my grandfather died believing I was gonna become a stepmom to a wonderful little girl and 2 crazy boys by eventually marrying a man I was crazy about, who dumped me less than a week before grandpa died, at home, of prostate cancer that had spread to his liver and his lungs before it was found. Ex said we weren't spending enough time together, because I'd spent the last week doing a full schedule of college classes and then commuting an hour to spend nights taking care of my dying grandfather at home, because he refused treatment and pretty quickly reached the 24/7 care stage. I never told grandpa, because that time wasn't about me, and he didn't need to be sad for me while he was dying. That's horrible, but I'm so glad for you that your ex showed his true colors before you got married. I knew my ex was never going to be the supportive person I needed him to be. That was one of the reasons we divorced. My ex had to constantly lie to her overbearing mother about her whereabouts all the time and numerous other things. It honestly did get in the way of our relationship numerous times because of her constant stress and anxiety over her mother. She had a very abusive childhood and one of her biggest fears is her mother not loving her if she disobeys her. So she puts her on this ridiculous pedestal. I can only hope things get better for her in that department, as she also has the "you don't abandon family" mentality ingrained into her. Ironic that her other biggest fear was me not loving her, but then she goes and pushes me away. When she asked me if she had been a good mother when I was small, I put aside all the childhood hurts and assured her that she had done fine. "You did so well, my therapist, thanks you." My mother loves ceramic elephants. She's nuts for the frickin' things. Her house is full of them and her pride enjoys one that I bought for her a couple of years ago for Christmas. It sits front and center on the mantelpiece, ready to be commented on by anyone who comes into her living room. She has no idea that I earned the money for Christmas presents that year by writing a particularly filthy erotica story. That elephant is a little cumslet, and my mother will never know. That elephant is a little cumslet, and my mother will never know. No context. My mother is under the impression I have never had drugs. She knows I drink and smoke, but thinks I have no interest in drugs. My father was a prolific drug taker and used to abuse and rob my mother due to it. When my mum asked recently, I told her I haven't, when in fact I had a very dependent relationship with drugs as a teenager and only stopped in my early adulthood. Because my partner at the time dealt drugs to my friend whom then died from an OD. It shocked me to my core. It only then clicked the real world consequences of drug taking, be it dying or being a lowlife. I cut all ties off to that world, went cold turkey. My mother was under the guise I was in the morning. I got my crap together and made it to uni. Kudos for sorting it out. My in-laws, who are very conservative and religious, would crap chickens if I told them I'm atheist. They threw a beef fit as it was about us not getting married in a church. That was rough. Crap chickens. That's a wild mental image, but surprisingly relevant. Why my deadbolt's always locked when I'm expecting her over. Oh, sorry, it's been sticking lately, must be broken. In reality, you may not barge into my freaking apartment because I'm a grown person now and my property is not your property. Anything about politics or religion, we have very few beliefs in common, and we are all very opinionated on those subjects. They usually ask who I'm voting for, which is out of bounds, in my opinion, and I always just say that I haven't made up my mind yet. They usually ask who I'm voting for, which is out of bounds. Now that you mention, I cannot recall once either of my parents asking me this, ever. It's always been volunteered information in any direction. My spouse is from Philippines. Her family constantly asks her for money to a point where she can't even afford to treat herself. She and I were becoming very stressed as bills piled up. She told her parents that she was laid off and I was the only one bringing in money so that she does not feel obligated to send money back home so consistently. Her 12 siblings are more than capable of making money, so now they are being asked to contribute more. To put this into perspective, it came to a point where she was sending 3/4 of her monthly income to Philippines. Her siblings were nowhere near this amount. She also bought some farmland for them so they can grow their own food and grow crops to sell. She plans to have a motel or hotel built for more consistent income for them. My father is a retired Southern Baptist chaplain. He had his own church before getting back into the army. My mom is also from a thoroughly Baptist family. I am somewhere between atheist and agnostic, but mostly just apathetic. My parents think I'm still Christian and that I just don't like churches. The truth would just hurt them, so I still bow my head during prayers and show up to church on the important holidays. CME Christian as my mother calls me. Christmas, Mother's Day and Easter. Sorry, this is secondhand, but struck me as so you've got to be kidding me that I have to share. I met a trans girl through my work, an attractive young Western-born Asian who you would never guess was born male. We became friendly, and over coffee one day I asked how her parents took her transition. My mom's okay, but my dad doesn't know. But I thought they were together. They are. But dad was born in China and is kinda old-fashioned. So, it turned out, whenever she visited her dad, she'd wear a loose jacket and no bra, tuck her hair up under a ball cap, and lower her voice to a more masculine tone. And dad was clueless. He talked to his son about his life and goings on, and she'd just feed him a line of BS, because she wasn't about to share stories of working as a cocktail waitress and what she did with her boyfriend. Bro, her dad either hasn't said anything or is freaking blind. Religion. My parents are very religious and raised me in the church, but I pretty much dropped it as soon as I left home. They don't know. Always lied about where the cuts came from. Don't worry, I'm good now. Also, I'm hoping they never find out that I'm neither a Christian nor a virgin. Glad you are doing well. I told my parents I was gay some years back. They didn't believe me, so I don't bring it up. However, my mother asked me if I was like all these people she hears about that's promiscuous and has a lot of sex. I told her no. Truth is, I'm a hardcore kinkster in many kink communities. I'm fine with them never finding out. There are some things parents just don't need to know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mouth, that's great advice. Head, I already freaking did that. Why is every freaking conversation a lecture life lesson? Mouth, haha, yeah, they can be crazy. Head, Mom, you freaking racist. I'm marrying a Filipino woman and you still say ignorant crap like this? Mouth, wow, this is so cool. Head, worst present ever. Mouth, I love you. Head, I love you, but shit, you gotta stop saying racist crap. I feel guilty every time I choose not to argue against the racist comments. I just don't have the energy to do it every time. Of course dude. So my mom is such a controller. I lied to her about my relationship status and when she found out, she literally flipped her B and demanded that I show her all the texts I sent and received from my girlfriend. I judged that to be a breach of my girlfriend's privacy, especially since she's an adult, so I refused, to which my mother dearest told me to get out of the house. Like literally pack your crap and leave. So I did. My aunt, on the other hand, raised me when I was a baby, so she's like a second mother to me, so I never had the will to tell her I was homeless. BC I knew she would worry the bejesus out of herself, so I just lied about it, and I've lived in my car for a year, working and studying. Aunt found out in the end, but oh well. Your mom is fricked up. I am so sorry. Most of the time, my dad is what I call a minefield parent. You never know what tiny thing will set him off. His mental health has been deteriorating, and I'm hoping he doesn't become violent, but it seems like a possibility as of recent. My best friend just lost his mom to an extremely rapid, early onset form of Alzheimer's that turned her psycho-violent. When they finally got the money together to get her into a specialized care home, it was too late, and she died months later from undiagnosed ovarian cancer. Right now, wife and I have had a rocky first year of marriage. Decided to separate. I've been at my parents' for 5 weeks now. I plan on giving my wife space for another few weeks. If she still doesn't know what she wants, I plan to file for divorce and get on with things. I've been paying my 1/2 of bills for our house and stacking the rest of the cash just in case. It really sucks, but I am glad my parents are there to help me. I fell into a very deep depression and they are lifting me up with positivity. They got me back into the gym, getting healthy sleep, and being there to talk. That's awesome that you have parents that love you, I assume, are helping you out. A lot of people don't have that. We are lucky. Good luck to you in your endeavors. Alright mom and dad, I'm going out to definitely not have kinky wild sex with an older man. Be home in the morning after I shower away the CM and shame. I don't usually go with that option, so I guess girls night is my lie. I dunno. I bet after they got that answer once, they'd never ask again. That I like my boyfriend's parents more. My parents were great. They weren't abusive, but they were just emotionally absent. I've only hugged my mother a handful of times and I don't think I've ever touched my father. My SOS parents on the other hand, they treat me like their own daughter. Both of them bend over backwards to help me, and I don't leave there without at least 3 hugs. It helps that they're closer than my family, but my parents would be wrecked if they knew just how much more I enjoyed being with his family. That me and my ex used to do blow together. Like, we weren't addicted or anything, we just weren't very social at parties. We'd sneak off to go to the bathroom or someone's bedroom. People would assume we'd just be fricking, but we were doing lines off the counter so we could actually keep a conversation going with other partygoers. As far as I know, my parents only know that I smoke weed. I don't do anything but smoke nowadays, but it's still something I never plan to tell anyone in my family. LMAO. Till what to do blow means. I heard this phrase a couple of times and I always assumed it's same as blow job. Yeah, I'm B. I'm atheist and democratic. I'm everything my parents despise. It's not really lying, but I change the subject whenever dating, religion, or politics come up. Same. My family isn't unsupportive of the LGBTQ community, but they're just hypocritical enough that finding out their daughter is bisexual would cause some upset. I'm married to a man, so it's just been easier to lie and say I'm hetero than admit I have a lady boner more for Karen Gillan than Robert Downey Jr. Pretty much my entire life. But as soon as I turned 18 and was gearing to move out, I dropped the facades and lies and she interpreted that as me being full of hate and anger. I'm 21 now, don't know where she is, but last I knew she was homeless working minimum wage at an Asian supermarket that abuses her. She has suffered so much in her life and I've been there with her through some of it, but I can't be a part of it any longer. I love my mom, but for the sake of my own life, I needed to make the decisions I've made. My parents will sometimes say, "Oh, so what did you do last night?" I'm never going to say back my FWB came over and we had sex or I had sex with a random. I'll say, "Oh, I just stayed in and watched TV." Nothing crazy. I'd like to think my parents probably appreciate this lie. Okay, I'm only 20 and live at home in the summers, but I'd like to think I'm an adult. One thing my parents are super strict on is drugs. Now I'm not talking hard drugs, I'm talking about weed. I'm no stoner and certainly don't smoke that often, but my parents would never be okay with it. My mom has always expressed concern with it and has always been suspicious. Mostly cause she's just a worrying mom that doesn't know what her kids are doing away at college. But she absolutely refuses to change her stance. She thinks marijuana is like the worst thing ever. Sometimes I just wish she'd smoke some and chill the frick out. It will make you turn into a crazed jazz musician. I lie to my mom when I go on dates, hang out with male friends and just pretend I went somewhere by myself. From certain things she's said over the years, I've sort of gathered that she was in an abusive relationship with a boyfriend when she was younger, and she's extremely suspicious of any guy that tries to get close to me as a friend or otherwise. Unfortunately, it doesn't even put her at ease if I hang out with gay friends because she can also be pretty homophobic at times. I can't win. You could hang out with B guys for twice the annoyance. Anything about kids. I had a rough miscarriage and it really made me anxious about pregnancy. It's not something I'm excited about or even want to do. It's made me depressed and scared. My mom was supportive when I had it, but she hates it when I explain it deeply affected me and I don't want to just jump into having kids. My grandma tries to guilt me into having kids before she dies, so I just set the rules. I'm not going to talk about it. It's not anyone's business or decision but mine and my, so if it's brought up, even passive aggressively, it will damage our relationship. The pressure and comments made me feel crappy. I'll avoid people who knowingly make me feel like that. Good call on avoiding those people. They need to mind their own business. Having or not having kids is such a personal issue. If you have those worries and can talk to your so about them, that's great. I wish you both the best. I also don't want kids and people can be so incredulous, it's annoying. My mother is a devout Jehovah's Witness. If you don't know, it's a very high control religion that actively encourages shunning former members. I no longer attend but downplay my real feelings. Every year they have a memorial of Christ's death, which is basically the only yearly observance JWs allow of any kind. Every year she invites me, and I tell her I will go. If she knew I did not attend, she would feel the need to make a decision on whether to shun her son as someone critical of their former faith. My brother and sister already shun me over no longer being a believer. I do it for her as much as me. While part of me thinks I shouldn't have to, my elderly mother shouldn't be faced with a decision like that, in particular one dictated by such a terrible excuse of a religion. Seriously, who actively encourages shunning your kids? It is, absolutely, a terrible excuse for a religion. Coming from how involved I am in the gay scene. Like, they know I'm gay, but I still don't think they like me hanging out with 95% gay people and going to all of the gay resorts in the knee. They definitely want me to go to normal places. I found that I had to keep so much from my parents that it was better not to talk to them at all. They live in a dream world where they were good parents and Jesus is the answer to everything, and I'm never going to convince them that those things are true for me. I told my mother I forgave her for the awful things she did during her divorce with my dad. I forgive the verbal abuse, but I will never forgive her for abandoning our 16-year-old family cat in a townhouse without food. Turning her over to the Humane Society, knowing she'd be euthanized, was the worst thing I've ever had to do in my life. I killed my father in defense to protect myself and my mother a little over 2 months ago. I stepped up to support my mother and brothers to make sure they're all happy. My mom thinks I'm okay, but deep down it still eats at me alive. They are the only reason I get up in morning and work, but there's days where I completely break down after nightmares and want to give up. I can't never show my mother that side of me because I never want her or my brothers to ever worry about me. I miss my dad so much, but he always told me to protect my mother from anyone. There's not a day where I don't think about him and my family, but he raised me to be a workhorse and I'm grateful for it. They never need to know that inside I'm absolutely dying and an emotional wreck. My mom is a super hoarder and I don't tell her when I'm in a relationship because I honestly don't want my partner to see her like this. I hate visiting her home. I don't know what happened to her and I've tried helping, but she won't let me throw anything away. Not even the trash is trash to her. Recently at a family reunion she was telling some family members that she thinks I might be gay because I'm 37 and haven't dated anyone in such a long time. Sadly, nearly everyone she told has actually met some of my girlfriends over the years. I'll probably get downvoted to heck and maybe I deserve it. I lent my mom my Kindle and she asked what a certain book was. I said it was a book about fishing. It was The Pisces, a Mormon erotic novel. We're not at that place yet. Part of being an adult is acquiring skills so that lying is seldom necessary. Steer the conversation, change the topic, set boundaries, and keep polite distance. When I was in Afghanistan I convinced my mom I was just hanging out at Camp Leatherneck, main base in Helmand. Pretty dang safe. I was actually part of the push into Marja and frequently was in harm's way. After I eased, honorably completed service, I told my mom what was really going on and she thanked me for lying. My wife actually wishes I'd lied to her too, because she spent many sleepless nights worrying about me, especially during extended stints of River City. I lied to my mom from the age of 13 until I was 19 about believing in the Mormon doctrine. I was terrified that she wouldn't love me as much. When I did tell her, she cried and hugged me for 10 minutes straight. Our relationship has never been stronger. Exactly how deep my mental illness drove me, how close I've been to suicide and how often I was self-harming. My parents got a taste of the self-harm once when I was visiting home from college and it traumatized them. I still won't tell them when I'm not doing well and will lie if they ask specifics if I can't redirect or distract from the subject. My husband knows of course and I see a therapist and a psychiatrist, take my meds every day, and working on using coping mechanisms. I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in with all the resources available to me. I just don't want to scare my parents even more. It's worth lying a bit in my opinion. I told my dad I wanted him to get a cognitive workup, just as a baseline, in case you ever have any issues. The workup found significant impairment, just as I'd suspected. Every time these questions pop up it hurts, but here we go again. My alcoholism. Since my ex left 2 years ago I've been barely keeping it together. One time my parents came over and almost called 911. I told them that was a one-time thing. I get fall down drunk every night because I can't stand the regret. I'm an otherwise normal, attractive, according to others, guy about to turn 30 with a good job, but I feel like I'm gonna die cold, drunk, and alone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.